when we experience shame, guess what? It shuts down our ability to empathize with other people. Shame brings out the worst possible version of you.
What else are other people's expectations if not just ideas of who I am, right?
When you're being authentically you, that's triggering for people who are living in shame.
Hello, and welcome back to Retrieving Sanity, your recovery podcast with your host, Keegan. Last time Emma Lyons was here, she dropped a bomb on this show. Shame isn't a moral compass. Instead, it's a narcissistic control mechanism, and it's the engine of addiction and the thief of authenticity. So, Emma, for the person that has started to break the shame trance, but now feels a massive vulnerability or a fear that they're becoming too much, is that a sign that it's working or a sign that they're doing it wrong?
Yeah, this is the shame kind of obfuscates your true essence, your ability to be yourself, because shame says there's something wrong with you, you're defective, you're ugly, all these thoughts like you're ugly, you're stupid, then you're useless. All these things I used to have going on in my head constantly. And these are thoughts that are downstream from shame, because shame is that toxic cocktail of, disgust, anger turned inwards. It's basically self-attack. So when you disconnect from that, it can feel odd because it's kind of like you're taking off a mask that you've been wearing unwittingly your whole life. So yes, it can feel very different. But the feedback that I've gotten, what I experienced as well, is that it's extremely liberating, because it's like you've been going around your whole life wearing a straitjacket, and then you take it off and you realize you can move your arms and you can move parts of your body that you thought were just stuck there. So there's a real sense of liberation that comes. And also, like I think we talked about in the last in our last session together, it really makes us we shame. It's like a mask that we wear, and when we take it off, we start to realize and recognize who we are. And yet for some people that might be a little bit uncomfortable if you were attached to the previous identity of who you thought you were. But that wasn't really you. That was a manipulated projection of other people. You were trying to please people, you were trying to perform for them. And this is why the people, when they're being truly authentic, they really stand out in the crowd, because most people, 99% of people, are going around wearing shame masks of one form or another. And they think that's their personality, perfectionism, imposter syndrome, self-doubt, all of these things are symptoms of shame.
Yeah. And that's kind of the weird thing, is that since our last conversation, I've been tackling my shame stuff, and I didn't realize how deep it went.
Yeah.
And whenever you were saying that it was like wearing a straitjacket, you're entirely right, because it is like this, but not like the good kind of hug. It was like the kind of like I want to shrivel up and like kind of fade away. And working on my posture since then, I feel like it's released a lot of weird shame trauma, because my muscles are like finally stretching and getting to where they should be, but it's so uncomfortable too. And it's just like there's a lot of hurt and a lot of anger that kind of comes up, because it was like I couldn't express myself maybe. Maybe my true self was just being shoved behind that mask that whole time.
Absolutely.
And now that it's out,
it is. And we're all participating in this shame game. We're all participants in it. When you disconnect from it, it's kind of like one of the first articles that I wrote on my Substack was about the trauma matrix. And I realized the real matrix is not AI, it's our internalized shame and trauma, because trauma only passes down from generation to generation because of shame. Shame is like the Teflon that keeps that moving. If you look at animals that aren't exposed to humans all the time, they don't have this same genetic pass down of trauma that humans have. What's the difference? It's shame. So shame is kind of the vector for all of this. And it's the primary tool that we're all taught to use to control people. Parents use it against their children. Teachers use it against their students to keep them in line. It's so normalized that it can feel a bit strange to kind of step out of that game and realize that you don't have to play it anymore. But this is my purpose. This is what I'm here to do, to share people that there is something else that is possible beyond shame. Shame is always a manipulation. It's never about the person being shamed, it's always about the shamer. And
Mm.
when you stop shaming yourself and stop allowing yourself to be shamed, you release a whole ton of energy that was locked up in that.
I didn't realize how much our society ran on shame, how much it ran on narcissistic behavior. And I even tried telling some of my coworkers, like, hey, like shame is a bad thing. Like, we don't need it. And his excuse, he was like, no, we need it, because what if I just were to randomly come up and punch you all of a sudden for no reason? Like, I should be shamed for doing that. And I was like, no, you need to be educated why that was bad, But at the same time, he raised up a fairly good point that I myself wasn't too familiar with. And it was, how do we not control people, but how do we get that quick fix? Because like you said in our last conversation, it's good for the short term. It's good because it's effective in the moment, but it
Well,
backfires, right?
it's not even that it's effective in the moment. It looks effective in the moment, and that's the distinction.
Ah.
Like, if there is a child here who is bothering me because he's talking and I shame him to get him to be quiet, I might tell myself that I've educated that child, that he now knows to be quiet and that he has respect. But that child doesn't know that. That child just knows that felt terrible and I have to be quiet to not feel that anymore. So they don't learn. We don't learn through shame. We learn, if we learn and transform, it's in spite of shame, not because of shame. And
Hmm.
it may, in the moment, this is the thing, in the moment it looks effective. So it's apparently effective in the moment, but it's not really. You haven't taught that child anything except humiliation.
Okay, so humiliation is a weird kind of thing, right? Because we feel bad for doing what we did. We feel silly or whatnot. We feel like we went against societal norms.
Like I said, humiliation is the antithesis of true transformation. What we need is
Hmm.
empathy and humility. These are totally different emotions. And like I
Hmm.
think we said in our first conversation, when we experience shame, guess what? It shuts down our ability to empathize with other people, to empathize with ourselves, even. This is why we attack ourselves so viciously if we internalize that shame, or if the shame is external, we attack that source of the shame. If you feel someone else is shaming you, you will attack the source of that shame. And that's, I think, we this is what's happening in the collective now with immigrants. The collective, these are, we feel there's this repressed shame that we as a society haven't addressed, because our culture is built, and more, some countries more than others, built on genocide, violence, aggression, slavery, all these things. There has been no recompense for this. There's been no solution. There's been no recognition bringing this to light and recompense, saying you're sorry, none of that. So there's all this repressed shame underneath the surface that nobody wants to look at. It's very
Hmm.
uncomfortable, but it's there, as there in our collective consciousness. So what do? We find a scapegoat and we project that shame on them and we attack them in order to try to exorcise our shame. And this happens with individuals. We do that individually, and we can also see that
Hmm.
same process happening in the collective. And that's exactly what's happening with ICE in the United States, for example, and also in Europe. Immigrants are scapegoated because they are a soft target in lots of different cultures, not just in America. But yeah, America
Hmm.
is going about it in quite a ruthless way at the moment.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing, is that it's like kind of like we're using shame as a weapon against fear of safety or lack thereof, and it just doesn't work that way. It's like you said before, that shame is not our moral compass. So how would you tell someone that they can find their moral compass without shame?
Well, shame is not a moral compass. Shame does not make you better as an individual. Shame teaches you to shrink, to hide, to put on a mask that you are not enough, to attack yourself or to attack the source or the apparent source of your shame. That's not a solution to anything. That's not addressing the root cause of the problem. It's addressing what you perceive as the symptom. So if we're serious about dealing with these underlying problems, we need to release that shame. We don't know who we are when we're carrying shame. Shame it's a disguise, it's a straitjacket, it's a maladaptive tool that we've all been trained into using. And you can't know who you are if you're carrying shame. You can't be authentic. So you can't even be you. You're not even being you. So we're all going around
Mm,
thinking that this is who I am, but really we're just living, shame is running the show. So this is not even
mm,
you. It's shame is kind of like pulling the strings, telling you what to do. It's guiding you. It's you're in survival mode the whole time. You're living in fear and adrenaline. And when we're in that place, we will attack, we will kill, we will destroy in order to survive. That's what survival mode does. We flee, we fight, we do everything that needs to be done in order to survive and stay alive. So that's
mm,
not anyone's best version. It's not anyone's best
mm,
version. When you're in survival mode, you can't show up and be a loving, kind, empathetic person. No, you show up as arrogant, you fighting, you want to fight them, you want to kill the person that's shaming you or making you feel, that's the source of your shame. That's the source of you feeling scared for your life. So that's not anyone's best version. That's our worst version. When we're coming from the shame place, that's the worst possible version of who you are. And it's not even who you are because it's a total mask. It's the opposite
mm,
of the authentic you. So we need to take that
mm.
off, cut those strings in order to reclaim our true identity. And that's the work.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is work. It really is. So, real quick for the listeners that haven't listened to the first episode, can you break down your system break to evict the inner narc?
Yeah, so break is an acronym, and it's when you have a shame attack, basically. This is what it's for. And first of all, we've got to recognize that shame, the first thing, it's what I do with my writing, is to get people to recognize that shame is never useful, that shame puts you into
Mm,
survival mode. Shame brings out the worst possible version of you. And shame is not a moral compass. Shame is never helpful. Shame leads to the worst of you and the worst of humanity coming out. Genocide, up to genocide. Shame is an essential substrate for genocide. You'll see it in every kind of genocide there. And nearly pretty
mhm,
much every kind of terrible thing that people do, narcissists, or when people attack others, we often find shame there somewhere. So it's a substrate that really brings out the worst in us. So you've got to recognize that shame is never useful. And I have
mm,
an acronym break. So the first one is break the trance. Recognize that this is not your voice, this is the shame voice. It's a spell, it's a pattern, it's a trance state. So when it strikes, when it starts telling you that you're stupid or ugly or whatever that voice says, you've got to catch it, interrupt it, just name it. Recognize that this is not you and that this is I call it the inner narcissist. This is like the bitch or the Satan that you've internalized. So naming it really starts to disrupt that loop. Then we go on to R, which is refuse to engage. So just like a narcissist out there, you don't bring a narcissist to therapy. It's always a disaster. So with this inner voice that's trying to pull you down, you don't defend yourself, you don't engage with it, you don't explain, and you don't personalize. You just say, not today. And
mm,
then we go on to E, which is exposing the lies. So call out that shame-based programming. This is not true. It's not true that you have a big nose relative to what? Ugly relative to what? These are all subjective. This is not truth. And speaking that truth really disarms its power. So shame is always a lie. It's built on lies. It's built
mm,
on illusion and making you go into survival mode so that you act the way it wants you to act. Then you've got to anchor that in your body, come back to your body, because shame takes you out of your body and into your head and into, catastrophizing, survival thinking. So back to your
mhm,
body, feel your breath, plant your feet, say your name, and really remind your nervous system that you're safe and that you're sovereign and that you're still here. And then K, the final one, is really shaking it off, kick it out, stomp it out. This is something that we can do physically, when the shame strikes, and recognize that this is not yours. This is something that we've inherited through our society for thousands of years. Shame has been used. So this is something that's been handed down, and you don't have to take it in. Once you recognize what's going on, you can take your power back and not take it in. Habit
Mm.
is something that you do that you don't know you're doing. Once you know you're doing it, that becomes a choice.
Oof. And once you know that it's a choice, you decide to keep doing it. That's all on you.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I don't think that shame is one of those things anyone really should be harboring because we hate it so much, but we don't really even realize that we're doing it. And one of those things is though that it's that perceived safety, right? Because if we're shamed into acting certain ways, it means that we have certain ties to certain people because of that shame, right? So whenever we cut off our shame, a lot of the times, do you think that our ties to those people get broken because of that?
Yeah, people talk about trauma bonding. There's also shame bonding. A classic
Mm.
example. I mean, I got a message from somebody who's been practicing this break system. I haven't actually spoken with her one to one, but she's had great success with it. And she told me about watching. She told me this was really transformational to her and really caused a massive shift. But she was watching Bridget Jones, and she's watching it now from outside the shame cage, whereas before she was kind of like feeling it, and it's kind of like a joke that we all have, shame. We all share this shame thing, so we all know what it's like, and it's funny. But once you step outside that and you start looking in and seeing, how crazy it's her, Bridget Jones, is her whole identity, her whole self concept is built on shame. And this is what we're laughing at. This is what the joke is. It's like the in joke that we as a society have. So shame is so normalized, and it's just it's even joked about, but we don't need it. You don't need it. It makes you worse human being, not better.
Hmm.
Imagine who Bridget Jones could have been if she didn't have that shame keeping her stuck and small and scared. You know,
Hmm.
You'll never know until you step outside, until you courageously decide to let go of shame. You'll never find out who you are.
Hmm. So, real quick, can you give us an example personally where shame was for you and what happened whenever you broke it for yourself?
Well, shame was pervasive for me. It wasn't everything. I had constant, negative thoughts about myself. I constantly put myself down as a child. I had suicidal ideation, invasive thoughts, anxiety. Anxiety is another form of shame. It's like, oh my God, I can't do that. What if I do that? They'll attack me, or it's the fear of the potential humiliation. So it's like anticipatory shame. The anticipation of that shame keeps us small and keeps us from asking that person out, from applying for that job, because we're anticipating the shame of being rejected. So it keeps you small. So when you stop doing that, when you become aware of that, you can start taking those risks more fearlessly, and that
Hmm.
it causes your life to expand. Shame causes your life to contract and shrink. We
Hmm.
want, I think we all want to expand and become our best version. Shame is the antithesis of that.
Yeah. And if for some reason my mind just decided to come up with the metaphor, I guess, of like shameless is kind of like where the human body has the autoimmune disease, where it's like it starts attacking itself. It's kind
Yes,
of like that in a sense.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
yeah. And
yeah.
but why is it so weird that whenever you start breaking your shame and you become shameless, everyone else seems to attack you? It's like you're the problem all of a sudden, right?
Yeah, because you're triggering them. People are living in the delusion that you need shame. So even the word shameless, every other word in the English language that ends in less means you don't have that thing. You're homeless. You have no home. But
Hmm.
when we call someone shameless, 99.99 times out of 100, they are not free of shame. They are actually operating from repressed shame. Let's look at narcissists. Let's look at your
Mm.
Donald Trumps, people like that. They're operating out of repressed shame. This is why he gets triggered, when he sees someone mocking him, because it touches that shame spot and then he goes on the attack. That's what that is. A psychopath, someone who's incapable of shame, and because they're incapable of empathy, they don't experience shame. They won't experience that. They won't be triggered by that. They won't care. So,
Mhm.
people, our use of the word shameless and you have no shame, it's all reinforcing that belief that we need shame as a moral compass. Even though, if you look at the empirical facts, shame does not operate effectively in that way. Particularly if you look at the medium to long term, if you look at our prison system, there's empirical evidence. There's no true empirical evidence that shows that shame is effective. Shame is the root cause of all addictions, all kind of acting out behavior, all kind of self-attack
Mhm.
is there somewhere in the mix. And we pick up that alcohol, we do those drugs in order to put mute button on, in order to get some kind of temporary relief from that shame, from that
Mhm.
self-attack. And it works in the moment. And then once the next morning you experience even more shame and you start attacking yourself more for what you did. So it ultimately reinforces that shame spiral. It doesn't work. But even stopping the drink, stopping the substance doesn't stop the shame. It's only the external behavior. You can still be very shame based. This dry drunks, they're not no longer
Mhm.
drinking, but they're still operating out of shame, even though they're not doing any kind of substance or acting out in any way, but they're still driven and powered by shame. So that we need to get to the shame. Shame is the root. And also, things that are imposter syndrome, perfectionism, procrastination, people pleasing, self sabotage, self doubt. All these things are rooted in shame as well, because it's brilliant. Shame is the greatest lie ever sold to us as a civilization, because it's complete lie. There's no evidence for that. But and also there's a kind of shame around the word shame, so we don't want to name it. Don't want to name it. Oh,
Mhm.
don't. I'm not shamed. What are you saying? I don't have shame. I have
Mhm.
imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome
Uh,
is shame with better PR.
Wow. Yeah, you have a really good point there. I didn't think about that. But as you were right on that tail end of things, I don't know why my brain came up with it, but it was like Rumpelstiltskin. It's like you have to figure out his name. And once you figure out the name, he's gone. And it's one of those things that he's really good at spinning lies. But also, one of the things is that we're still sitting here and trying to figure out what society look like without shame. Can we even imagine that?
Well, without narcissistic systems, this is the kind of people living authentically, people living for who they are, not performing for anyone else's benefit, or because out of this feeling of unworthiness. So it's hard to imagine. You need to don't worry about that. Just worry about unhooking yourself from the shame matrix first, because until you do that, you have no hope of creating a non shaming system. Think about it. This is
Mhm.
why, there have been all these systems: capitalism, patriarchy, communism, whatever. All of these things are not one narcissistic system imprinted on another. And because they're all rooted in shame, this is why none of them are effective at creating real change. So your job is to disconnect yourself from that shame matrix first. And from there, we can start creating those systems. But until we do
Mhm.
that, we're going to keep creating and recreating the same kind of patterns again and again. We're not going to escape that way.
Mhm. And it's just weird because it makes me think that it's kind of like you become shameless, you suddenly become everyone else's scapegoat for the shame that they're feeling, right?
Yeah, but you don't have to take that in.
Mhm.
That's the beautiful thing. People can only shame you effectively if you have the little hook. So if I say, Keegan, you have big nose or something, you will only experience shame if you have this little voice in your head. I call it the inner narcissist that says, "Oh my God, yeah, my nose is ugly. Oh my God, do I have a big nose?" Then you experience shame. But if it's like someone saying, your orange jumper today looks disgusting. If I say that to you, you're not wearing an orange jumper. You're just going to think this woman is crazy. You're not going to take that in. You only take it in if you have the hook. And if you don't, I don't know if I told you this story the last time we had this conversation, but I spoke to a woman. I was on her podcast last year, and she was telling me about these kids who were out eating ice cream. And this man went up to them and said, "You shouldn't eat those ice creams, it's going to make you fat." And just think about how much shame these kids could have felt. And you know what they did? They laughed in his face and continued to eat that ice cream. You can do the same. Recognize shame 100% of the time is a projection of the other person. It's about them, not about you. And you don't have to take it in. You recognize
Hmm.
if somebody's trying to shame you, they experience shame. This is what we as women do. This is why women pull other women down. Oh, she's fat. Look at her wrinkles. She's got a big ass. That's projecting our shame onto them. So we get that little lift. I'm so powerful. It's very narcissistic. That's exactly what narcissists do. And we're all participating in that while we remain in the shame matrix.
Okay. So it's kind of weird because back whenever I first started recovery, it finally dawned on me that I was like living in the cage of expectations that others built for me. But it's kind of weird to think that it's rooted in shame because what else are other people's expectations if not just ideas of who I am, right?
Exactly. It's always a projection. It's sometimes people, we talked about this before our conversation. Sometimes people can experience shame when you just make an innocent comment or, something constructive. They can experience shame and then go on the attack for you.
Mm.
That's their responsibility. That's their shame being triggered. And again, it's a narcissistic impulse that we've all been trained into. And this is why there's such an epidemic of narcissism in the world right now, and narcissists, because we have the perfect narcissistic substrate and we're all participating in it while we remain in that trauma matrix, in that shame matrix. Once we step out of that, we can start creating something different. And
Mm.
that's the challenge I'm putting to you and your listeners there, to find out who you can be when you let go of that shame. Because until you do, you're going to keep swimming around and encountering the same problems. And we collectively are going to have that same problem that we've been having for thousands of years. There's no progress. We're just imprinting one narcissistic system on another and wondering
Hmm.
why there's no meaningful change happening. But this is why.
And it's just so strange that shame and narcissism just go hand in hand, and everything that we know is built off of those two.
Yeah.
And so, one of my questions is, do you really think, well, rather, what happens to the narcissist whenever they start breaking their shame? Do they not become a narcissist? Is that possible?
Narcissism is not ever really considered to be curable or healable, because most narcissists are
Hmm.
very unaware and there's no real incentive for them to change their behavior. So narcissism is widely considered to be something that people do not change from. Once someone is diagnosed narcissist, they can go to therapy, they can become more self-aware, but it's not really recognized that they can widely recognize that individuals can come out of it, because it's so deeply ingrained in their personality.
Okay, so really to help not make a narcissist, we really have to kind of start with the new generation. Almost it sounds like.
Start with yourself.
Yeah, yeah. And then go from there.
Yeah, you have no hope in changing anyone. Change yourself and be that model for other people. Shameless is a word that's been co opted to mean something negative. If I call you shameless, it's a slur. And what it really means is that you're behaving in a way that triggers my shame, that offends me. So I
Hmm.
call you shameless. Occasionally, it might be somebody acting authentically, and I'm triggered by that. But 9 times out of 10, this person is acting out of repressed shame, like I said. So your job is to really disconnect yourself and be that model for other people, because people don't know it's possible. We've been trained since we were born in this shame world, and people don't know that anything other than that is possible because shame has been so deeply ingrained in our society and so normalized absolutely everywhere. The other day on social media, I put a comment about, you know, an intervention that was made by the United States, and 500 million comments come and attack me about it. That's the shame field. And what I did, I didn't argue with them. I didn't try to defend myself. I deleted my comment and stepped out of the field. That's what we've got to do, because otherwise you're just feeding that feeding frenzy and
Mm.
adding to the shame spiral.
Ooh, okay. So that does raise a good question, though. Internet culture, because everyone thinks that they're right on the internet.
Right.
So we like to shame people that have a slight difference of opinion a lot of the time. But of course, that doesn't work, and we can't really sit there and argue too much. Like, have you seen the show What We Do in the Shadows?
No.
So there's an energy vampire, and he says that one of the best ways to drain people of their energy nowadays is via the internet. And he just goes on and trolls them. He just sits
I
there and so it's kind of like, isn't that what is kind of happening online? People just get
Yes.
fed by just
Yeah.
making people feel shitty.
It's what the exact same tool narcissists use to get narcissistic supply. And while we're operating within the shame game, we are doing the exact same thing. We're getting supply out of shaming other people. And we get, like I said, that temporary,
Mm,
"Ooh, I'm so powerful. I'm making them feel so bad. Yeah, I'm so good. I can make them feel so bad." That's exactly what narcissists do. And we're all doing it while we're operating within the system. So we want to step out of that.
mm.
That's a and step into a more healthy model.
And so we can't sit there and say, I can fix them because obviously,
No.
like you just said, there's no helping at a point because it's on the person. And it's kind of sad that for some people, they're made so entrenched with this thought pattern that there's no way out, or seemingly. Now, I hope that many people can find that way, but it is kind of scary in a sense, right? Because people have a long lifespan, so shame has been with us since forever, and it feels like the people that figure out the shameless is good. It feels like they're just kind of lost in the sea of voices that say otherwise, right?
So you mean people who step out of shame? They're very rare.
Hmm.
There are a few people out there who are very authentic and they don't care about what anyone else says.
Hmm.
Few people that I can think of. I mean, Bad Bunny for me is one of those people. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's very authentic and very free. He's got that vibe for me. So there are a few kind of models for that. That's you can just focus on yourself. Don't try to change other people. Think about how
Hmm.
hard it is to change yourself. Stop trying to change other people and change you, and
Mm,
then be that
yeah.
mirror for people who are willing or interested in changing. A lot of people aren't
Ooh.
interested in changing. They just want to feed off your shame. And
Ooh.
when you give them that, you're giving them that narcissistic supply. You don't have to be a narcissist to get that narcissistic supply. We've
Uh-huh.
all done it. When you shame yourself, there's that inner narcissist that we internalize also feeds off that. So
Huh.
rather than trying to negotiate with them, that's a brick wall. You're just giving
Hmm.
them more fuel, more, and you're empowering them more. You want to cut the ties and step outside the field and start embodying what you actually want to, who you want to be. Because while you're
Hmm.
involved in that shame culture and that shame spiral, you are feeding the beast, so to speak.
Hmm. Huh. It's really strange because it just kind of hit me that, like, I think narcissism could be the adult version of what we call for young kids or adolescents bullies, because bullies are essentially kind of doing the same thing. They're acting out of repressed hurt, they're acting out of their repressed shame, and they're trying to shame other people for possibly maybe the same thing that they're dealing with back home or something. So
Yeah.
like that's so strange. So bullies act in shame. Huh.
Yes.
That's weird. That's
Pretty much all bad
So
behavior, you can trace it back to one form or another of shame. I'm not saying shame is the only thing. That's a huge claim to make, but you
huh.
will more than likely find shame in the mix there somewhere.
Yeah. That's so weird. So one of the things I have to ask though is like how do you think that like people back in the day, like way back in the day, how do you think that they looked at sovereignty versus shame culture? Because sovereignty is saying essentially that you're shameless, right? You are you.
Yes.
You are powerful within
Shame
yourself and
free.
everything.
Yeah. Well, I talk about shameless and reclaiming that word because in normal common parlance, when you call someone shameless, it's a slur. I'm all about reclaiming that word. So I'll gladly use it in that way, free of shame, basically. So
Huh.
in cultures in the past, in all hierarchies, you have some form of shame. So the real kind of
Mm,
vector for the current shaming culture that we experience in the Western world was the Catholic Church and Christianity. That really spread the idea that there's something wrong with you as a person. You are
mm-hmm,
bad. Prior to that, you had more agrarian cultures, or even the more in pre-Christian cultures, even in Ireland, you had you had you had shame, but it was slightly different form. This is this is basically the honor code. If you step out and do something bad, then you bring shame on the family because of something that you've done. So it's not quite so identity based. It still can be deadly. It's the main kind of shame that you see in the Far East, in China, Japan, and
mm-hmm,
many people commit suicide because of that. So it's lethal, but it's not I'm bad because I exist. It's I'm bad because of something that I've done. So in theory you could remedy or rectify it. And I believe this is why I
mm-hmm,
believe the Western concept of shame is so toxic, because it really goes to the root. You are a sinner because you're born. You are a sinner because you're human. There's no fixing that. You're done. You are a shameful
mm-hmm,
being. And, if you look at the story of the Garden of Eden, this is what it is, the introduction of shame into the human psyche. And we come out of
mm,
innocence and we suddenly feel humiliation and shame, and we try to hide ourselves and cover ourselves. That's what shame is. The reason why we have fallen as a species, and this is a big claim, but I'm going to make it anyway. One of the key reasons why we as a species have fallen so deeply into dysfunction is because we are operating out of shame, and we have taken that on as part of our identity.
yeah. Oof. It's a really big claim, but you know what? I'll plant my flag right next to yours and say the same thing. Because after experiencing what it's like to be shameless, even for like millisecond, because it's really hard to dig that root out. Like I can break the trance every single time it pops up, but that's the thing is that it's just there. I have to remind myself that I can break the trance and then kind of step out of it. But it's if humans just do this and keep doing it and doing it and doing it. It's like Plato's cave. Whenever he gets out of the cave, you can't really go and tell the people in the cave still like, hey, this is what's on the outside, because they're going to be like, no, it's not. And like in the person that does make it out, it kind of hurts at first. It's kind of like taking off a mask.
Yeah, you will be rejected, you will be attacked, because you're doing something different. You're doing
Hmm.
some, but this is how revolutions start, Keegan.
Mm. Ooh, revolution. So, I mean, it goes all the way up. And I mean, did you go through a grieving process whenever you kind of left your shamed side behind?
Well, I mean, for the life that didn't, I mean, I'm from my family system. When I realized how dysfunctional that was and how I had been shamed and internalized all that shame, there was a grieving process there for the life that I could have had, for the relationships that I could have had, the careers that I could have had, the things that I could have done. But I was paralyzed by shame. So yes, there was a lot of grief. Yes. And I had to go through that process. There was also anger, there was rage, then there was grief underneath that. So there is a process that you go through. It's like shame is the ultimate addiction of our society. We're all shooting up on it happily. And when you step out of that, it's like the woman I was talking about, the Bridget Jones moment. You see how crazy it is that people are still doing it, but you can't involve yourself in that anymore. You're outside looking in, and then each individual needs to decide for him or herself, and it's going to start from the bottom up. The revolution does not stop from the top down, because people on the top are benefiting. Shame, the people doing the shaming are the only ones who benefit from it. So
Mm.
we need to take ourselves out one, and then collectively, and then it'll be like a domino kind of effect. But you're standing up and being shameless and being who you really are. You, just by your presence, you give other people permission to do the same if they choose. And you cannot make them do it. You can only embody that energy so that it gives them the opportunity to choose it for themselves, but you cannot change it for them. They can choose to remain there if they wish. And that's a valid choice too.
Yeah, and it's a valid choice because it is their choice. They have free will for
Exactly.
however they want their body to in life to go, right?
Yeah,
So it's kind of weird because shameless, really, the more I think about it, it's showing yourself the ultimate act of love, right?
exactly. Exactly.
Huh.
Self attack and shamelessness, shame free, being unshameable is the ultimate act of self love.
Damn. So maybe a lot of people back, like all the spiritual teachers and stuff that are trying to promote this love for everyone else and they're also saying you have to love yourself, but we missed the message. Someone screwed up the message somewhere that we have to shame other people for not loving their neighbor or something, right?
Exactly. And, shame is a dirty word, like I mentioned before. Nobody wants to admit that they're feeling ashamed.
Mm-mm.
So, self help, spiritual circles don't talk about shame. That word is missing. They'll talk about worthiness, they'll talk about self love, but they won't talk about that dirty word, that shame, because nobody wants to admit that they have it. But it's the ultimate anchor that keeps people stuck and unable to manifest and create the life they want. It's like the anchor that's keeping you at the bottom of the ocean. You want to rise and create things and be successful, but all that shame is keeping you at the bottom of the ocean. So good luck trying to rise to the surface. Shame is what we need to release in order to rise. And this is what nobody else that I've seen is really talking about.
Mm. Yeah, because it's that word that no one wants to talk about. So why would anyone want to put it underneath a microscope, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's a dirty word. It's like a four-letter word. People will talk about imposter syndrome. People talk about perfectionism. These are the these are the versions with good PR, but nobody wants to talk about the root. And while we don't talk about the root cause, we can't heal it, because if we want anything we want to heal, if I want to put down my wallet, I need to if I want to release it, I need to pick it up first and recognize this is my wallet, and then I can put it down. Until
Hmm.
I do that, good luck. We've got to recognize what it is first. And that's what there's a lot of resistance to doing. So people are stuck
Ah.
in this idea, they're stuck in this old identity because they've been trained into it for so long. And it's also their identity. It's like a cult.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a cult where shame is normalized, and anyone
Uh-huh.
saying otherwise, you attack them, you kill them. Because they're
Mm.
project. You feel shamed by that, so you will attack them. You will kill them as the source of your shame in order to make yourself feel better. This is what cults do, and it's like a shame cult. It's like a narcissistic cult, our world. So people will defend that to the death.
Huh. Yeah. Just like a parasite, you
It's a
know?
parasite, yes. It is a parasite.
Yeah, and I remember you talking last time about it's not a wounded child, and I had to do some deep dives on myself because there's that talk of like everything that is wrong with you is your wounded child. And like there's definitely a wounded child, but it's not the one trying to push that narrative of I'm still bad. It's saying, why me? And, like, why did this happen to me? You know about the law of attraction, right?
Yeah.
So, from this conversation, one of the things I'm kind of getting out of that is that you can't even really manifest or do things like that if you're shaming yourself, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
So,
That anchor that I spoke about,
uh
or
huh.
you're anchored to the bottom of the ocean and you want to rise to the top. Good luck
Hmm.
while you're carrying that shame. And this is why people watched all those movies, The Secrets about manifesting. Some people had success, and more people, many more people, really struggled because they've internalized this shame voice and it left out that part that nobody talks about. You got to release the
Hmm.
shame in order to manifest what you want, in order to
Yeah.
feel worthy of creating what you want. You've got to
Hmm.
let go of that shame, and like I said, it's not just about feeling I'm good enough. It's deeper than that. You've got to stop breaking those patterns of self attack. And they come in lots of different forms, like self disgust, this violence. It's basically violence against the self and against others. This
Hmm.
is what shame is. So shame is indefensible, but our whole society is built on the idea that we need it. And
Yeah.
this is why I say it's the biggest lie that we've ever been sold as a
Hmm.
collective, as individuals. And once you recognize that, it's the beginning of a huge shift in your life. I think I mentioned to you, I've had people reaching out to me. I haven't even spoken to them one to one, but they've been exposed to this idea and they've experienced massive shifts in their life. Like people talked about feeling lighter, feeling they were able to get through Christmas more easily,
Ah.
but this is when they went through the system and actually put it into practice. It's not magic. You need to actually put it into practice when the shame voice comes up, because it's something that we've been habituated to. It's like we're addicted to shame. We're a society that is operating out of shame because we're all addicted to it. It's like we're shooting up on shame and
Yeah.
everyone's doing it.
Yeah. Real quick, where can people find you if they're looking for more help on breaking up with their shame?
You can find me over on Substack. That's where I have my deeper work. That's Trauma
Okay.
Matrix, and also trauma.matrix over on Instagram, TikTok. Yeah, I'm also YouTube, Trauma Matrix. So reach out to me there and let me know. Send me a message, send me a DM, let me know how this information landed for you. And if you put it into practice, let me know what happens. And if you want help with it, reach out to me because this is what also I do.
Yeah. And I mean, I just got to say thank you again for being on the show because we are near the end of this episode, unfortunately. But it's just been amazing to dive back into shame and what it is, what it isn't, and how we can actually kind of maybe envision a different future. But it's because we have to envision and act on us first,
Yeah,
ourselves personally, and
yeah,
then it just kind of spreads out from there. So it's the ultimate act of self-love. It's the way to actually manifest what you're wanting. I mean, if everyone's wanting to just have a better life, I think that this is honestly the step to do it because I don't know about, well, obviously we've talked about it, but like whenever I first started my recovery journey, like there was still a lot of shame there, but I didn't realize that that's what it was. And now that I'm breaking up with my shame bit by bit, it feels so much better. Like holy shit! Like I didn't even.
what kind of
This is what
changes have
recovery
you
is supposed to feel
noticed?
like.
What kind of changes have you noticed in yourself, Keegan?
So I've noticed that I don't beat myself up nearly as much anymore because, like you said, it's shame attacks. Though at first, on our first episode, I was like, shame attack? I don't know if I've actually had one of those. And then I think back to it, whenever you first said the straitjacket thing, it was like, that is exactly how my body is because just slumped over all the time, trying to hide. And so I'm I feel empowered, and that's a dirty word too. And that's one of those things that I feel like I can embody myself. And that's the crazy thing is that it's one of those things that taking the mask off, it kind of hurt because my skin grew around the mask and I had to sit
Yeah.
there and like cut it off. And it's so I'm both empowered by it. I also find myself being a little bit more, I wouldn't say triggered, but it's a lot of the things that have been repressed for so long coming to surface. And it's like I'm figuring out how to go about that, because that's the wounded child that's coming up. That's the part that's saying, I was hurt back then, and it's why me. But now I'm thinking in the future sense of why not me for the things I want in my life. And
Yeah.
so it makes me think that I have a future. That's the crazy thing. It makes me feel like I have a future.
It's that's the feedback that I've also got from other people. They suddenly feel lighter, they feel more optimistic about the future, all the pessimism kind of fades away, and they start seeing how other people are acting totally unconsciously out of shame and how insane it is. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it.
Mm-mm,
And a lot of people, they don't want to see it. They don't want to see it. They're not ready for this.
mm-mm.
They're happy to just kind of decorate the cage rather than open the fucking door and get out.
Yeah. And I mean, it's one of those things. It does a really good job at making you think that you're safe in that shame cage, but it is the biggest lie, like you said, because it kept me small. It kept me feeling like I was worthless, that I didn't deserve to be alive and things like that. But
Exactly.
the exact opposite is happening. It's I deserve to be me. I deserve to express myself. I deserve to be happy. And that's the crazy thing. Like, happy was an elusive word for me. I didn't ever say happy, really. And now that I'm breaking up with shame and I'm working on myself and figuring out that there's something else, there's more to life, then I'm happy. I'm much more happy on a daily basis and moment to moment basis than I used to be,
So
because
since our
shame
last
had,
conversation, you are feeling
yeah.
happier. Wow, amazing.
Yeah, because I didn't realize how much I was shaming myself in literally every reaction, because I had that filter put in my head of, is this acceptable? Yes or no? And then if it was acceptable, how much of it is acceptable to who? And so I was having to, shame myself into not doing certain things because certain people don't like this, certain people don't like that. So I would shame myself because, I want to appear good. I don't want to be the bad person or whatever. And it's kind of one of those things like, fuck them. Like, if they don't like it, screw them.
Yeah, just
So,
be you. Be
mhm,
shameless. Some people are going to be triggered. So people are definitely not going to like you when you're doing your thing, when you're being
mm-mm,
authentically you. That's triggering for people who are living in shame. When they see
mhm,
someone who's being authentic, who's shining their light, that triggers
yeah,
people who are stuck in shame and they will want to attack you. But
mhm,
you don't have to let it in.
yeah. Uh, do you have any last words for the audience this evening or anything like that?
Yeah, well, I do have a free gift if people are interested. Apart from reaching out to me, it's called Five Signs That It's Time to Break Up with Your Inner Narcissist. So if you're feeling like you've got this inner narcissist, and it also has steps about how to make that happen, you can find that at tinyurl.com/not today narc NARC.
Yeah, awesome. And I just got to say thank you for that.
Embody your shameless. Don't stop giving a fuck what anyone else thinks and stop shaming yourself for being
Mhm,
you. Just be you and F everyone else. You just be you shamelessly, live your life, and you're gonna trigger people. They need to be triggered. They need to wake up. If they're ready, maybe you'll be the person to wake them up and get them out of their own shame cage if they choose. That's not your
mhm.
job. Your job is just for you to take that step for you.
Yeah, and so thank you for providing tools and resources for people to be able to take that first step, to be able to take that look in the mirror, and to be able to make that decision if it's the right thing for them. Because I can say for myself, everyone out there, you've got to try it. Break up with your inner narcissist. It is so fucking worth it, and you will be so glad that you started working on it. And like she said, it is not magic, but it sure fucking feels like it. It's a
It is
lot of work, though.
magical. It is magical. The you lightness of being, the ultimate lightness of being. This is the reason why you're stuck in your life. It's the
Mm,
reason why I was stuck for so long because I was stuck in shame. So it was kind of like a miracle for me. It was
yeah,
the piece that really cracked everything open. Nothing really worked until I worked on this piece.
yeah. It's the key to the puzzle. I'd have to
It
say it's
is.
the skeleton key.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Totally agree.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I mean, I'm just so glad that I even got exposed to it and I can have this kind of conversation because old school me would have been like shameless, like, nah, like you said, I would have never admitted that I was shamed about so many different things. But that's the thing is that we're here and we're working through it all. So,
Yeah, when you step outside of shame, this is where the good kind of synchronicities can start happening, and you let them come up and manifest, and you let life flow like it's supposed to. You stop resisting life and you start letting life flow through you.
hmm, yeah. And oof, flow. I was actually just looking into flow state the other day of how to turn it on by command. So it's pretty interesting that you said that. With just
Well,
letting
yeah,
life
I think
flow through you.
shame is the ultimate resistance to flow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can't flow if you're in shame. You can't. You can do all the techniques they say and do the meditations, but if shame is there under the surface, good luck to you. And you don't have to hold on to it. You have no obligation. It doesn't help you, it doesn't help anyone. And the best thing you can do to change the world is to break up with it. Break up with your inner
Mm.
narcissist, break up with shame, stop taking it in, and model that for other people.
Yeah. And so I just got to say thank you for being a role model for myself. Thank you for being a role model for my audience and all the other audiences. And I hope everyone out there has enjoyed this conversation as much as I have. And I hope y'all have also gotten something out of it because it's just so good. Try it, try it, try it, try it. Try to break up with your shame parasite, and it's going to change your life. Like it's crazy. But everyone out there, thank you for listening to Retrieving Sanity on WDJY 99.1 FM. And as always, try to love yourself, love others if you can, but you gotta love yourself first. And if you're having any issues with mental health crisis, you can dial 988 or text 741-741 if you don't want to talk to anyone personally. This has been Keegan, this has been Emma, and we will see y'all in the future. But until then, much love. Schlan.